Welcome back again, everyone. It's DinaKalmeta here. And for today's news, I wanted to bring you an update in regards to the Middle East, as a lot has happened in the last few days. As I'm sure you're already aware, it's been reported that Russia has been helping Iran target U.S. forces. We learned over the weekend that China is aiding Iran in their ballistic missile program. And just this morning, it's being reported that apparently Trump has sent the Doomsday Nuclear Command plane to the Middle East. And there is more. So if you are ready, let's get started.
Two ships owned by an Iranian company that the U.S. has accused of supplying materials to Iran's ballistic missile program departed a Chinese chemical storage port just last week, laden with cargo and headed for Iran. The vessels are part of the Islamic Republic of Iran Shipping Lines, a state-owned company under U.S., British, and European Union sanctions that has been described by the U.S. State Department as the preferred shipping line for Iranian proliferators and procurement agents. Isaac Cardin, a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, said that China could have held these vessels at port, imposed an administrative delay, invented a customs hold, any number of tools, but didn't. That's a deliberate policy choice made during an active war in which Beijing publicly calls for restraint. Given the track record, the explanation is that they're loading the same commodity they've been shuttling for the past year plus. Bloomberg is reporting, as well as other sources, that Iran has destroyed a radar system in the opening days of the conflict that's vital for directing U.S. missile defense in the Gulf. Analysts state that the damage creates a significant gap in high-altitude surveillance coverage. Ryan Brost, deputy director of the Center on Military and Political Power at the FD, told Bloomberg that if successful, an Iranian strike on a THAAD radar would mark one of Iran's most successful attacks so far. But he did note that the U.S. military and its partners have other radars that can continue to provide air and missile defense coverage, mitigating the loss of any single radar. The North American Aerospace Defense Command has scrambled fighter jets in response to Russian military aircraft that was detected near Alaska. Two Russian Tupolev Tu-142 military aircraft were spotted in international airspace in the Alaskan and Canadian Air Defense Identification Zones. The Tupolev Tu-142 is a Soviet-Russian maritime reconnaissance and anti-submarine warfare aircraft. NORAD said that the Russian aircraft did not enter American or Canadian sovereign airspace, and that this Russian activity in the Alaskan and Canadian identification zones occurs regularly and is not seen as a threat. The Canadian Prime Minister Carney remained tight-lipped about whether his country would become involved in the conflict. The Canadian Premier was asked whether he would consider sending troops to the Middle East, in which he replied that he could never rule out the participation and will stand by his ally. So we have Canada that is not giving a clear answer, but could technically join. And then we have the Prime Minister in the United Kingdom. President Trump wrote on his Truth Social, "The United Kingdom, our once great ally, maybe the greatest of them all, is finally giving serious thought to sending 2 aircraft carriers to the Middle East. That's okay, Prime Minister Starmer. We don't need them any longer. But we will remember, we don't need people that joins wars after we've already won." Now, the president's statement came after the UK Minister of Defense said that one of the country's 2 aircraft carriers had been placed on advanced readiness in Portsmouth, England, for a possible mobilization to the Middle East, according to the BBC. In an address to the British people on Sunday, Starmer condemned indiscriminate attacks by Iran after the U.S. strikes, adding that the only way to stop the threat is to destroy the missiles at source. He added that Britain has agreed to the United States' request to use British bases for that limited purpose. After the strikes, Trump told The Telegraph in the UK he was very disappointed in Starmer, claiming it took far too long for the Prime Minister to allow the U.S. to use British bases in the region. Here's a report from ABC News in regards to Iran activating sleeper cells outside the country. Apparently, the United States has intercepted encrypted communications believed to have originated in Iran that may serve as an operational trigger for sleeper assets outside the country, according to federal government alerts sent to law enforcement agencies. The alert, reviewed by ABC News, cites preliminary signals analysis of a transmission likely of Iranian origin that was relayed across multiple countries shortly after the passing of the supreme leader. The intercepted transmission was encoded encoded and appeared to be destined for clandestine recipients who possess the encryption key, the kind of message intended to impart instructions to covert operatives or sleeper assets without the use of the internet or cell networks. It's possible that the transmissions could be intended to activate or provide instructions to pre-positioned sleeper assets operating outside the originating country. This is according to the alert. The Times of Israel is reporting that Turkey has delivered a stern message to Iran after it fired a second ballistic missile at the country. He said the necessary warnings have been delivered to Iran. Despite our repeated warnings, provocative steps continue to be taken against Turkey. No action should be taken that casts a shadow over our 1,000-year-old neighborly and brotherly bond. He says the missile fired today was intercepted and fell on open land. The Jerusalem Post is reporting that apparently Saudi Arabia is increasingly angry over Iran's aggression against Saudi Arabia. According to Arab News in Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that if Iran presses ahead with its attacks, it would bear the heaviest diplomatic, economic, and strategic consequences and be the biggest loser. The Foreign Ministry said that the targeting of civilian airports and oil facilities is nothing but a demonstration of determination to threaten security and stability and a flagrant violation of international covenants and international law. Now, in addition to that, it's been reported that the Iranian-backed Houthi organization has announced that it is prepared to get involved in the conflict raging across the Middle East. The primarily Yemen-based Houthis are one of the several organizations that are part of Iran's axis of resistance, which also includes the Lebanon-based Hezbollah, Hamas, and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in the Gaza Strip, and Shiite militias in Iraq. On Thursday, the leader of the Houthis announced that regarding military escalation and action, our fingers are on the trigger, ready to respond at any moment, should developments warrant it. The U.S. military's doomsday planes have taken to the skies as fears of a nuclear war inch closer to reality. Flight tracking data has captured multiple launches of the Navy's E-6B Mercury Strategic Airborne Command aircraft since the war began on February 28th. These giant planes are built to survive a nuclear war and coordinate America's military response from the air. Specifically, the planes serve as a flying radio station and command center for the President and the Secretary of War, carrying special antennas that can even reach nuclear-armed submarines deep underwater. Along with it being able to talk to satellites, land-based military posts, and underground missile facilities, the Mercury fleet is capable of controlling a nuclear strike should World War III break out and the U.S. was already under attack. 2 E-6B Mercury flights were spotted over the U.S. on March 2nd, one traveling from the Gulf Coast and landing at the Naval Air Station in Maryland, and the other taking off from and later landing back at the Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. Since those flights, there has been reports from military news outlets of more E-6B launches heading across the Atlantic to the Persian Gulf. The Pentagon declined to comment on the reported flights due to Operation Security. The main job of these planes is to carry out the ominous task called take charge and move out. Essentially, it means that the E-6B could be used to send orders from President Trump or top leaders to Navy nuclear submarines, even if normal phone lines or ground stations were to be destroyed. In a crisis, the planes are sent to certain areas to stay in the air or near key spots. This keeps communication links alive if ground bases get hit or jammed. The threat of nuclear escalation has continued to mount since initial strikes on Iran by the U.S. and Israel, with Iran's allies in China and Russia, both warning that the situation could spiral out of control and lead to a larger war. According to reports, nuclear-armed Russia has begun aiding Iran by sharing intelligence on the positions of U.S. forces in the Middle East, a move that could be the final spark that ignites World War III. Despite being originally rolled out 40 years ago, the E-6 is still viewed as America's most survivable aircraft that can carry out this potentially world-ending mission without failure. Now, with that said, it's also been reported that Putin's spokesman has addressed a growing fear that the end of the world is upon us, with most people having never lived through a worse time. Dmitry Peskov also hit out at a breakdown in international law as massive U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran continued in an onslaught that the Kremlin has labeled a perfect storm. It goes on further to report that an emergency meeting of the G7 has been called for today, where firefighting options, including the release of oil reserves held back for crises such as this, will be discussed. The main issue is the near total closure of the Strait of Hormuz, through which around a fifth of the world's oil travels, which means major uncertainty hangs strings over short-term supply. Iran's Revolutionary Guard has threatened to set ablaze any Western tanker that attempts to navigate the strait. Fox News is reporting that President Trump said on Sunday that the decision to end the war in Iran will be a mutual one that he will make with Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu.
So definitely a very volatile situation in the Middle East right now, and hopefully cooler heads will prevail and it will not trickle into the United States. But what if that doesn't happen? What if it does become a much bigger conflict, and what if it does trickle into the United States? I have another report here from the Daily Mail, and they list the 15 U.S. cities that would be targeted if a nuclear war were to happen.
As the U.S. and Israel continue striking targets across Iran, fears are growing that the escalating confrontation could spiral into a wider global conflict. European nations are already being reluctantly pulled into the crisis, deploying military assets to defend allies while trying to avoid direct involvement. Military analysts have warned that if the fighting expands and draws in Iran's powerful allies, including Russia and China, the risk of a catastrophic global war could rise dramatically. Both nations possess some of the largest nuclear arsenals in the world, raising concerns that a major confrontation could quickly escalate beyond the Middle East. Experts have long warned that in the event of a nuclear war, the U.S. itself would become a target. While major cities such as New York and Washington, D.C. would likely be among the first locations struck, several lesser-known areas across the country could also be in the crosshairs because of their strategic military importance. From Louisiana to Utah, a network of remote facilities tied to U.S. defense infrastructure could become key targets in a nuclear exchange. In 2019, Russian state television even broadcasted a list of potential U.S. targets that could be struck in a nuclear attack, offering a chilling glimpse of how such a scenario might unfold. So where are they? Well, there are 15 sites, and they were identified based on factors including population density, proximity to strategic military facilities, emergency preparedness, and evacuation logistics. Here are the states that would be targeted. Hawaii. Why Hawaii? Because the Hawaiian capital is home to several major U.S. military installations, including Pearl Harbor and Joint Base Pearl Harbor-Hickam, making it strategically important to America's defense network. Shreveport, Louisiana. This metro area is often overlooked, but it's home to one of the most powerful nuclear air bases in the U.S. Ogden Clearfield, Utah. This is near one of the U.S.'s most importantly military installations, the Hill Air Force Base, which supports the Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center. Cheyenne, Wyoming. It may be a small city, but it holds enormous strategic importance. It is home to Francis E. Warren Air Force Base, one of the primary command centers for U.S. intercontinental ballistic missiles. Great Falls, Montana. This sits just a few miles from Malmstrom Air Force Base, a critical installation that oversees hundreds of nuclear missile silos across the northern U.S. Colorado Springs, Colorado. Nestled at the base of the Rocky Mountains, Colorado Springs is home to several major military facilities, including the North American Aerospace Defense Command and Peterson Space Force Base. Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha serves as a key command hub for U.S. nuclear arsenal. Albuquerque, New Mexico. Albuquerque is home to Kirtland Air Force Base, which stores one of the largest concentrations of nuclear weapons in the United States. Houston, Texas. The city serves as the country's energy capital and hosts massive oil refineries, shipping ports, and critical industrial infrastructure. Seattle, Washington. This city lies near the naval base Kitsap, one of the U.S. Navy's largest submarine and nuclear weapons facilities. Los Angeles, California is the second largest city in the United States and a major economic powerhouse. This city hosts major ports, aerospace companies, defense contractors, and global media organizations. San Francisco, California. This sits at the center of one of the world's most influential technology and financial regions. Chicago, Illinois. This particular city is a major transportation hub and economic center linking rail, air, and shipping networks across the country. And then, of course, Washington, D.C., political and military nerve center of the United States. New York City is the most populous city in the U.S. It is home to Wall Street, the United Nations, and many of the world's largest media and financial institutions. A strike on New York would have both devastating human consequences, any of these places will, an enormous global economic impact, making it one of the most symbolic potential targets in any nuclear confrontation.
Now, hopefully, none of this will happen, but I just thought it was very interesting that Russia actually came up with this list. So, definitely wars and rumors of wars. And as always, I'll continue to keep you updated. But I'd love to hear from all of you, so please do leave your comments below. Are you in any of the cities I mentioned? Let me know in the comments. Also, when you have a free moment, come and visit me on my social media pages as well as my website. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And until next time, God bless and stay safe.